Number 10. I should start this by saying that my biological father has been dead for some time. In fact, he committed suicide soon after this incident I'm about to describe. My parents were married for 16 years and had dated through high school. In fact, they were a trophy couple, as in, they were homecoming king and queen. My mum was a librarian, but was elected county clerk when I was 14. My dad was the night manager at the local Walmart. We live in a house that has a creek nearby, and on the nights that my dad was off, he would go down there and fish rather than sleep, because it was easier to keep sleeping during the daytime. When I was 15, I started smoking cigarettes. Don't judge, I've quit. One Saturday, I was desperate for a smoke. I knew that my dad kept a few packs in his fishing tackle box, and since he was asleep, I slipped down to the basement where he kept his box. I had no idea what I was in for. The box had a lock on it that could only be opened with a key. Being the sneaky little jerk I am, I had snatched the key from his room. I opened the box. I can still remember the click of the key. My first thoughts were, sweet, I can have a cigarette now. For those who smoke, the thought of smoking is actually better than doing it. Inside were several instant developed photos. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, these were actual cameras that flashed and the photo slipped right out. Anyway, the first one I saw showed my dad standing over a horse. He was holding a bloody machete, and I saw quite clearly that that poor animal was cut open. There were several photos like this from various farm animals. A house was near found. I almost threw up right there and then. To this day, I still get sick just thinking about it. But the murdered animals weren't the only things I saw. There were photos of my father wearing lingerie, handcuffed to beds, with writing on his body in lipstick. The writing was very obscene stuff. There were others with him wearing S&M outfits, and one showed him with a very young girl that still horrifies me to this day. She was completely naked, with chains around her neck, with my father in S&M. I had no idea what to do. I decided to call my mother, who was at her office. I told her I needed her there, immediately. She knew I was serious, so she got home quickly. My dad was still asleep. I took her downstairs and showed her the photos. We left the house and went to her sister's that very day. The police were called, and they discovered that my dad had been having an affair with a 19-year-old S&M fetish enthusiast, who was also the one who took the photos of him in the lingerie. He pled guilty to the animal cruelty charges and hung himself the first night in prison. But that's not the end of it. When my aunt, his adopted sister, heard what happened, I can still remember how she looked. Her skin went completely white, and I thought she was having a heart attack. She told my mother that he was caught torturing animals when he was younger, and she had caught him going through her underwear. She even said that she once woke up to see him masturbating over her bed. Luckily, that's all. My mum married a good guy who's, hopefully, not a complete perv. It's been 20 years, but I can still remember the shock I had when I had opened the tackle box. Number 9. I was 15 and had a boyfriend who lived 8 miles from my house. We used to sneak out and visit each other at night, but didn't have cars, so we would walk. He'd walk to my house, or I'd walk to his. One of these nights, I had visited his place and it was getting late, around 2 or 3, so I left. I started down the main road as usual, and hear a car slow down behind me. I looked to my left and saw an older car pull up next to me. The guy looked young, older than me but still in his 20s. He asked me if I wanted a ride. I said, "No thanks, I'm good." He asked again, and I thought about how I had just started my walk and how much further I had to go, so I thought, fuck it. I jumped in the car happy to skip the trek. First thing I noticed while inside was a strong scent of alcohol in the air. It was so strong. He was also staring at me so hard that he swerved and hit a ditch in the side of the road. "Watch it!" I yelled. I was a smart-ass teenager then. He just gave me a goofy, drunken smile. He was driving really slow too. Not sure why, but out of all the red flags that had presented themselves, it was his super slow driving that bothered me the most. I'm just gonna stop here and remind you guys that I was a really naive 15-year-old. Up until this point, I was just annoyed with this dude. Nothing more. I had told him to go straight on this road for a few miles when he slowly turned right into a small street. Immediately, I said, "Dude, what the fuck are you doing? I said I live that way." "We're going to my friend's house." I said, "Fuck no, take me home." He just ignored me and kept staring at me while driving super slow. I demanded he stop the car and he ignored me again. Pissed off now, I opened my door and jumped out of the moving car. I fell hard and got up and started walking away angrily. He was already out of his car and crossed my path. He clutched my arm so hard and pulled me to his car. He sat in the driver's seat and told me to crawl over him into the passenger. I pulled out and yanked, but he was too strong. This is finally when I started to get scared of the situation. He wasn't letting me go, and was basically trying to kidnap me. A horrible feeling of dread just washed over me. I was looking at the moon. It looked so big and beautiful. So many nights I had marvelled at its beauty, and I felt like now it was bearing witness to my demise. I burst out crying. When I did, he reflexively loosened his grip on me, and I saw it as a chance to fucking run. I lived in a small town, so we had fields of orchards and crops between residential areas. I broke free from him and ran straight into a cornfield that was right off the road. He yelled at me to stop and started chasing me. The stalks were taller than me, so I ran in zigzags through them, trying to lose him. I lost a boot in that dirt. He was falling farther behind me. After the field ended, there was an abandoned house that sat right next to the road. I banged on the door hoping that maybe I had only thought it was abandoned. There was no answer. Surrounding the house were flat fields and just the main road. I couldn't take any chances running through those, cause the moon was so bright that night. I was sure he would have seen me, so I climbed into a huge tree in front of the house, so high, just hoping he wouldn't see me. He came out of the cornfields and I could see him below looking all around for me. I was so terrified. I could only cry as silently as I could, praying he wouldn't look up. After a while, he gave up and walked back to his car. I thought that was the end of it, but he got in his car and drove up and down the main road looking for me. I was up in that tree for so long, I was getting physically tired. I couldn't believe how hard he was looking for me. Sometimes he would get out of the car and look deeper into areas of the road. Then he'd jump back in his car and go up and then down, really fast or really slow. After a few hours, he finally disappeared. 30 minutes passed without me seeing his car, and I decided to head home. Again, because the moon was bright and the fields ahead were low, I literally crawled through them, scared shitless that he might show up, see me off the main road, and chase me again. When I got home it was dawn, and I was shoeless and covered in dirt. Grateful to be home still. Needless to say, I never walked the street alone again at night. Number 8. I had been working as a certified nursing assistant in a pretty nice place. It was one with large rooms and a heavy price tag for the residents. I normally spent my nights on the Alzheimer's lockdown unit, which never lacked for excitement or really off-the-wall events, like my favourite little old lady opening the door in a fairly full walk-in whirlpool bathtub. She absolutely hated her bath or shower nights. She would usually go limp in the seat and say in the most dramatic voice ever, "Oh, I'm dead." Then her head would loll to the side. She was adorable, but this isn't about her. There was a night where they had to juggle around our positions because of various call-offs. I wasn't thrilled at the prospect of being on a floor where I didn't know the residents and wasn't familiar with their routines. Always made for a stressful night for myself and them. I was on the second floor that night, 20 residents on my to-do list. Luckily, a lot of them were more independent and mobile than the 10 I would have on lockdown unit. That meant a little less work for me and more time for those who need the additional help. I ran my arse off trying to answer the howling screech of call bells, jogging back and forth from one end of the hall to the other. Finally, everyone was tucked into bed and I was able to collapse into a chair for a bit. I hadn't gotten to rest for long before the nurse, Margaret, called and asked for me to come to the nurse's station to fill out a care sheet for one of my residents. I hobbled down the hall. My feet and legs were achy and I felt distinctly noodly. I peeked into rooms as I went to make sure that everyone was still in bed and asleep. It had only taken me about 5 minutes to fill out the care sheets the nurse needed. I turned to walk back down to my end of the hallway so I could collapse onto the couch. I stopped cold in my tracks. I had seen some weird shit in my 4 years on the floor, but I had no frame of reference for what I was seeing. The dimmed hall was filled with a group of about 6 black-robed figures. It looked as though they were floating down the hall. My heart pounded in my chest in a feeble attempt to crack my ribcage open. What the actual fuck? My eyes were probably the size of silver dollars and my mouth went dry. I wanted to look back at the nurse, but I was too afraid to take my eyes off of the gliding black masses ahead of me. After a long shaky breath, I turned towards the nurse and the other nursing assistant, Brooke, who had come up to the desk while I was frightened to the point of wanting to wet my pants. I'm certain my face was as white as a sheet, and I knew I was shaking. I was freaked the hell out. Then Brooke and Margaret took in the terrified expression, and Brooke was stifling a laugh. "What the hell?" I squeaked out. Brooke was barely holding it together at this point. "Did you see that? Please tell me you saw that and I'm not losing my damn mind," I was begging at this point. Margaret finally spoke up. "Yep, we saw it. They were headed to 227 Seaful." My eyes bulged. Were they fucking nuts? They were some kind of demons or Satanists going to see a resident at early midnight? Why was I the only one scared? Why was it funny? Had I entered the fucking Twilight Zone? Margaret looked me over, assessing my reaction, then smiled mischievously. "You didn't know? Ethel was a nun. Those are Benedictine nuns from St. Vincent's." The fear suddenly deflated, and I could feel a blush suddenly burn my face. Nuns, not demons. Definitely not Satanists. Benedictine nuns from St. Vincent's. Let's never, ever fucking meet in a dark hallway, ever again. Number 7. Okay, so this is my third encounter I'm sharing on here. Little backstory. I just moved into this sectioned off apartment complex, maybe a little over 5 months ago. This place was divided off weirdly, so I get the occasional stranger knocking on my door, only to then realise they had the wrong apartment number. I live alone, for the most part, so I've gotten used to occurrences like these. But this one was a little creepier than what I was used to. So, I was just watching a film in the living room, which had a sliding glass door that I usually don't cover with curtains, unless I know I'm going to be taking a nap on the couch or something like that. Anyway, I began to hear footsteps coming up towards my door, which you'd have to pass by the glass door to get to. When my eyes adjusted to the darkness, outside, I was able to see a man's face looking directly at me. This wouldn't have startled me as much if he didn't have a bleeding nose. My body didn't know how to react, so I just sat there for a moment and stared at him to see if he would realise and would leave once he found out he had the wrong apartment. But he didn't move at all. Maybe only 2 minutes passed, but it felt much longer than that. I slowly picked myself up to go and grab my phone, just in case I would need to call the police. He began to knock, as if I didn't know he was there. With the number dialed, I opened the door only a small crack. "Can I help you?" Now that I was close up, I finally got to see what he looked like. Dark blonde hair, blue eyes, stubbly beard, the works. "Yes, I'm looking for this girl I met at the bar earlier. Is Jess here?" I didn't know anyone by that name who lived in this apartment complex. I told him he had the wrong door. But he kept on insisting that it's the right address and tried to get closer in through the door. My mind was racing, but then I remembered that the man above me is a police officer, so I had an idea. "Oh, Jessica. Oh, she lives upstairs. The door is over there." He looked confused, and that scared me a little bit, because maybe there was no one called Jess in the first place. He made a few more attempts, saying, "No, I'm sure this is a place," but he soon gave up. "Okay, I'll go check upstairs." He huffed and then walked down my steps. I watched him to see if he would actually go into the man's apartment, but he didn't. He just walked to his van that was parked in the parking lot. I may or may not have convinced a huge creeper to leave me alone. I'm still going to keep an eye out, and definitely close those damn curtains. Number 6. Okay, I was 12 at the time, and near my house there was a giant forest. At the time, I was shooting a film for a school project, a Halloween film in fact, in the woodland area. I had a secret entrance into this woodland area where you wasn't supposed to go. I know I shouldn't be there in the first place, but it's so creepy at night. Oh, and by the way, I'm practically fearless. When my dad's running around the house because of the spider, I'm sat there laughing with strange fantasies of eating the 1-inch crawler. I know, I'm weird. Anyway, if there's anything that has actually quite scared me, apart from creepypastas, they're terrifying, but I love them. My favourite one's the Slender Man. So, when I was in the secluded woodland area at 3 in the morning, I was looking for a great place to film. My camera had a night vision thing, so I was using that to find my way around. Halfway through I stopped when I heard noises like wood being chopped up by an axe, or gunshots. Okay, so I stopped and tried to find an explanation, but instead I found the perfect place to film. Trees running with sap, and a creepy surrounding. I was lucky. When I was about to film, I noticed that there was something running down my back. It was sticky, but warm. I took off my coat, and for the life of me, I wish I could make this up. In the bush behind the tree, I saw a man who looked to be in his 30s, crawling out with nothing but insanity on his face. He looked like Mr. Burns when he was an alien on The Simpsons, except his grin was too big to fit on his face. By the way, he was bald, I think. I dropped my camera and turned into Sonic and legged it home. The next day, I called the police and explained to my mum. When the police came back with information, it turns out the sap on the tree was actually blood, and the dripping stuff on my coat, that was blood too. The man, whose name I can't mention, was not arrested and is still on the run. Now, this happened 5 years ago. The police told us there were 3 bodies of dead women when they got to the scene. I don't know if he was arrested or caught. I can only imagine what would have happened to me if he caught me. But there's one thing I can say. Creepy man in the woods. Let's not meet again. Number 5. So I live in a small rural town in the southeastern United States. Because of my work schedule, I have a membership at a 24-hour gym in town. As a member, you are given a key fob that you wave in front of a sensor so you can work out anytime you want. The gym is in an old shopping centre. The shopping centre is located on a desolate stretch of road that takes you out of town and to the interstate. There is nothing but trees and hills for a 5-mile radius. Add to that the busted spotlights, and this gym can be pretty creepy after dark sets in. Anyway, one night around 1 AM, I'm in the gym working out on a weight machine. I'm all alone with only the sound of the air conditioner and my breathing to accompany me. A young woman walks up to the door, waves her fob and enters. She immediately goes to the treadmill. I nod my head and continue working out. I think she was nervous being in the gym late at night with a big guy lifting weights. But soon we would be united through a weird and creepy experience. A guy dressed in jeans and a t-shirt came up to the door. He knocked on the glass and smiled at me and the young lady on the treadmill. I watched as she stopped and walked towards the door. He was clean cut and didn't look too threatening, but he was smiling too damn hard. "Hey, can you let me in? I forgot my key," he said. The girl walked over to the door. I couldn't believe she was going to let him in. "I don't think that's a good idea," I said. "Why not?" she replied. "He doesn't have on workout gear," I said. That seemed to make her stop and think. "I'm sorry, I can't," she said to the man. He stopped smiling. "Let me in, don't be a cunt," he said. He said it so viciously, the woman shuddered like she had been shot. "What?" she asked. "Open the goddamn door," he screamed. He began to pound on the glass as hard as he could. I got up and said, "I'm calling the cops." He stopped. "I'll be wiping your blood off my hands before they get here," he said. I pulled my phone out and dialed 911. He ran away. The woman was freaking out. The cops showed up and we gave statements. When we finally left, I went to my truck. Her car and my truck were the only 2 vehicles in the parking lot, and both of our tyres had been slashed. So, crazy G-Rat, let's not meet. Number 4. So, here's a bit of backstory first. I live in a neighbourhood with lots of abandoned houses. There are about 12 houses in my neighbourhood, and over 7 of them are abandoned. In one of the abandoned houses, there is a playground in the backyard that the old neighbours left behind. Now I was 12 at the time, and I knew in my brain I was a little too old to be playing on a playground made for 6-year-olds, but I can't resist a nice swing set. I would spend some of my extra time over there, as it was summer and I usually just played video games. The house is past some woods you have to walk through, about a block away from my house. It was a normal day and my mother said I should go outside to get some fresh air and that she was tired of watching me play video games. I thought it was the perfect opportunity to go swing on the swing set. It was beautiful outside, the not too hot heat, but the warm with a slight wind. I got on my shoes and walked down to the forest. As I was about maybe a few steps in, I heard a branch snap. Now, I heard these all the time from squirrels, so I don't think anything of it. I finally finished walking through the forest and reached the house. I open the back fence, lock it and start to swing. I swing for maybe about 2 minutes when I hear breathing. Now, I stop for a moment, trying to think where the hell it's coming from. After about 30 seconds of stopping, I forced myself to think it was just me, as I was going pretty high. I continued to swing for about another 5 minutes, and decided that I was done for now. As soon as I sit up, I hear a "Hey." I look around for a moment and notice a man, about mid-30s, early 40s. Dirty gross black hair that's all over the place, a stand-up sweatshirt, and underwear with the back cut out so I can see the outline of his butt. This guy was obviously homeless and had a crazy look in his eyes. Here I am, a 5'2", 95-pound kid with no strength, staring at a 6'2", 170-pound man. As tough as I could, I said, "What's up?" The guy stared at me and started to smile. After 15 seconds, which seemed like 40 minutes, he said, "Have room for one more?" I quickly said, "I was actually leaving, but it's all yours." The man opened the gate, walked past me, sat down and started to swing. I speed walked to the gate, shut it and started walking into the forest. About 20 seconds later, I hear a loud, "Get the fuck back here!" and heard the gate spin open and running not far behind me. I practically shit my pants and started running as fast as I could. I somehow made it back to my house and locked the door without the man noticing where I went. I told my mum, practically in tears, and she called the police. The police searched around and came back a couple of hours later with no one. That night, I was tossing and turning in my bed when I heard footsteps in my street. I looked out of my windows to see the man looking through the windows of all the houses on my street. I start to shake as I grabbed my phone and called the police without even telling my parents. The cops showed up a few minutes later and called the man. The cops didn't give us a whole lot of information, but a few days later, cops called and told us the man has mental illness and had been living in one of those abandoned houses for a couple of weeks, and that he was planning on kidnapping me and doing God knows what to me. So, to that creepy fuck that tried to kidnap me, let's not meet. Number 3. This didn't happen too long ago, so everything is still fresh in my mind. My fiance and I were enjoying a nice relaxing evening at home. The cable had randomly gone out, so it was quiet while we tried to fix it. Our living room has 2 large windows looking out at the street and the driveway, and our door also has a large oval window in it. We live on a dead-end street with few neighbours. While fixing the cable, a truck screeched into our driveway, and two men immediately get out screaming, "Hey, it's us!" I initially groaned, thinking it was my fiance's annoying cousin and friends randomly showing up. That's until my fiancé bolts into the back bedroom. The men have then gotten onto the porch. One is staring at me from the large window and banging on it, and the other is pulling at the door and looking in. They're screaming at us to "Let us in!" It's not friendly. I'm sure they don't know us. Our house couldn't be confused for any other on the road either. My fiancé is back near the door. He tells them to leave. I see he went to retrieve the pistol. I kind of inch off the couch and go around to somewhat hide. I yell, "I'm calling the cops." They back off a little toward the driveway, but as soon as I move into the front of the door, they're back screaming to be let in, trying for the doors and windows. They keep shouting their names for some odd reason, but we don't know them and have never seen them. I'm calling 911 in the back, but keeping an eye on them from another window. I finish up calling and move slightly into the hallway. They're backing off again, but not before telling us in a creepy, threatening, off voice to "Have a Merry Christmas." They pull out incredibly fast and are off. No attempt to stop anywhere else. Number 2. I'm not a writer, so please forgive any errors and that this might not flow as well as I would like. I'm doing the best I can. A little background first. This happened about 4 years ago. At the time I was around 8 months pregnant, so very noticeable, and was doing some Christmas shopping at the local mall. It was around 9 at night. I finished up my shopping and headed out of the mall towards my truck. At this mall, there is a road that goes around the mall, and parking is on the other side of this road. Therefore, you have to cross the road to get to the parking area. As I'm leaving the store, I happen to notice a man standing in the middle of the road. He looks in my direction and made eye contact. I looked away and kept going. At this same time, there are 2 men that walk past him to go into the mall. He never looks at them or says anything to them, but kept his eyes on me. I noticed that he started to walk in my direction, but I just kept on strolling towards my vehicle. Then I hear, "Excuse me, can you help me?" Being southern has its downfalls, and one of those is having it ingrained into you to be polite. I simply just asked, "What do you need?" He looked around and said, "Could you help me start my car? I think my battery is dead." Now, I may be southern, but I'm not that polite, nor am I stupid. Please remember that I am very much pregnant and a woman walking alone in a parking lot. If he was really having car trouble, is it likely that he would ask a pregnant woman for help rather than the 2 men that had just walked past him? Doubtful. At this point, I know it's time to go, so I just say, "Sorry, I can't help you," and keep on walking. A little faster this time. I still see him out of the corner of my eye following me. I have my keys out and am ready to go as soon as I make it to the truck. He's still coming. "You really aren't going to help me? I just need a jump." Again I say, "No, sorry." Finally I get to the truck, unlock it and jump in. He is practically running towards me now. I locked the doors and tried to get the keys into the ignition, but I was shaking, and at that moment the damn key just would not fit into the ignition. He gets to the truck and hits my window, saying, "I just need your help for a minute." Now, I am starting to get angry and yell, "No! Get the hell away from me!" He grabs the door handle and tries to open my door and screams, "Just open the door!" Here is where I lost my cool and made a split-second decision. I have my concealed carry license because there have been other reasons that I needed protection that I will not go into here. However, I did have a 38 special in my console that I did know how to use. When he tried to open my door, my only thought was to protect my child and myself. I rolled the window down, grabbed the 38 and pointed it right in his face and said, "I'm not gonna tell you again. Get the fuck away from me." He stood there for a moment, in shock, I'm sure. In that moment, time stopped. I didn't know what he would do, but I knew that I was prepared to use the gun if he made any move toward me. He didn't. He didn't say a word. He turned and ran. I know I should have gotten the hell out of Dodge then, but I couldn't. All I could do was sit there in shock. I was terrified of not only what he may have done to me had I not felt that something was wrong, but also that I had just threatened to kill someone. Not a situation I ever want to be in again. However, should it happen, I still have that 38 and it is loaded and ready to go. So, man at the mall, I hope we never meet again. Number 1. English is not my native language, so sorry for any mistakes. It happened to me and my mum on Christmas time. I was 12 at the time, and my mum was 37. I went to the mall with my dad and my mum to just look around some stores and relax and eat some food. Before we got to buy food, my dad said that he wants to go to the restroom, so me and my mum had to wait for him right outside. So me and my mum were talking about what we wanted for Christmas, and then a really weird guy, around 50, came out of the restroom. He had black hair which was all over his face, and he looked drunk. He smelled really horrible too, like something was decomposing in his hair or something. So he approached us and started to talk. "Hey," he pointed at my mum. "Is that your mother or your daughter?" "It's my mum," I said to him. "Wow, you look really young. You're so gorgeous." My mum doesn't really understand English, so she was just timidly laughing it off. Then the creep turned to me and said, "And you are the cutest and prettiest girl. What's your name, kid?" I know I shouldn't tell him it, but I did anyway. I told him my real name, but I was so confused and didn't understand what was going on. "What a pretty name. Do you want to come with me? I have some candy in my car." I didn't know what to say. I was frozen, and my mum didn't even understand what he just said, so she couldn't help me. He was staring at me with his weird red eyes and smiling. Not the cute smile, no. The kind of smile that gives you the chills. I was just about to agree when I saw my dad coming out of the restroom. I was so relieved that he was there. He understood English, so he could talk to him. But when this creep saw my dad, he stopped smiling and just left. I saw him later trying to do the same thing to another kid, but he failed once again. And the last time I saw him, he was staring at me when I was in the car in the parking lot, with the same creepy smile again. So, creepy guy that creeps on children, let's not meet. Well, anyway guys, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, share and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you check out my previous Let's Not Meet video. It will be linked in the description below and at the end of this video for you guys. If you have any Let's Not Meet stories of your own and you wish to share it, then please make sure to contact me and you may be featured in the next episode. Well, anyway, I hope to see you soon and I will speak to you later.